Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 108 of the Podcana podcast. This week we have a very special guest. We have Edmond Chiu joining us, the winner of DLC Dallas Fort Worth, the NA Championship winner, and of course, the recent runner up of the Disney Lorcana World Championship. Ed, is an absolute pleasure to have you returning to the podcast. You were previously on with mine and Brendan talking about when you took down the Dallas Fort Worth Challenge. And yeah, how have you been? You've just traveled back from the World Championships, right?
Yeah, I just got back last night. Luckily, we were able to like make all the layovers. Like we had one in Atlanta, and apparently there was like a huge thunderstorm
Oh,
that
damn.
shut down like the entire airport. So like everybody was able to make everything. But yeah, good to be back home.
Awesome, man. Yeah, really glad to have you on the podcast. Congratulations once again. Your performance was absolutely outstanding. You should be extremely proud of yourself. Yeah, and some of the topics we're going to be diving into on this week's episode of the podcast. Of course, we're going to break down Ed's Worlds lineup that he brought the three different decks. Dive into maybe some of his strategy. Because I'm sure a lot of people would love to know kind of your thought process going into Worlds and stuff like that. And then, of course, we do also have a lot of news that the Lorcana community has been talking about in general. As much as I want to say we're going to try and keep things positive because it was like a massive celebration from Worlds and stuff, there are some things that we definitely need to address, and I'm curious to hear both of your guys' opinions on it as well because I've kind of shared some of my thoughts online already, but definitely interested to dive into that a little bit deeper. But yeah, starting things off. So your lineup that you brought, Ed, was Ruby Sapphire, it was Amber Steel, and it was Green Purple. Pretty much like the most common choice, as we've been kind of referring to it as on the podcast for like the past month leading up to
Hmm.
Worlds, the most obvious choice, kind of consisting of what we could consider to be the three best decks that you could use in general within that color combination without kind of using something a little bit too different. For example, a lot of the other combinations meant that you maybe had to run something like maybe a hyper aggro deck or something a little bit more spicy like the Emerald Sapphire decks we saw that were like super heavy item based builds. But yeah, would love to just from like a fundamental standpoint, an overview, like your first thoughts once you learned about the format and how you kind of maybe you went about testing some things. Would love to hear some insight from you.
Yeah. So I mean, I watched your guys' podcast for like the last like month or a couple months
Oh, awesome! Thank
leading
you.
up to it, right? When you guys talk about the world's format,
Hmm.
and I would say probably the first idea I got was from Moyen, right? The obvious choice: red, blue, green, purple, amber, steel, and then target red, blue specifically.
Hmm.
I thought that made a lot of sense just because like red, blue, or like any kind of blue deck was usually the control strategy. It was quite hard to make in an aggro like sapphire deck, so I thought it made more sense to try to target these like aggro to mid-range strategies. So I'm like personally, I'm like a very like numbers driven person, like Frank Carson, like articles and stuff like that. So I try to use like the same kind of approach for this. And I mean, we don't have like, definitive win rates, but I mean, if we had to gather whatever data we had, I think Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Amethyst, and Amber Steel are clearly like the top three in like win percentages, probably on the play and on the draw. So it to me it made a lot of sense to like start from there at least, right? I did end up, trying all the combinations just to, see how they worked out, right? But obviously, time is finite, and then eventually you have to get to the point where you're like, okay, I have to kind of commit to one. So I kind of went all in on the kind of obvious strategy. Something I was kind of surprised by was a lot of players ended up banning Steel. And I thought that if you ban Steel, your other two matchups become extremely polarizing. So let's say, for example, we go with the obvious choice, and it's like Ruby Sapphire and Emerald Amethyst. So how do you build like your decks in a way that are favored into those two decks? Like usually they're very different cards, right? Like for example, like against Diablo decks, you need cards like Brawl or like some way to do 2 damage, fire the cannons, etc. But those cards are really bad against Ruby Sapphire, right? So every time I kind of went down that rabbit hole, it just didn't make any sense. Versus like if I just banned Ruby Sapphire, a lot of the cards that are good against like Diablo are also good against like Amber Steel, right? A lot of like small characters, easy to banish. So with that in mind, I basically took all you know, the base versions of each of the decks and kind of tailored it towards being just slightly greedier than my opponents. So if you kind of like look how I built, like we can go through the decks, right? So Ruby Sapphire, I think there's like a lot of ways to build it. Obviously, there's like shark, there's like items, and then within each, there's also like a lot of different variations, right? When I did a lot of playtesting with like shark, I think the card I liked the most about shark was the Visions of the Future. I think that card made the deck extremely consistent, and that card was basically not played in items. There were some variations where it was like a half and half approach, where you play like workshop, but also like some sharks, some how far I'll go. But it just felt like a little bit clunkier to me, and I didn't really want to run this like hybridized version. Like I know like Moyen likes the meme as like, oh yeah, you have to like run a bunch of these like different cards and like play all these situations and stuff like that. But I think me and DKP getting to the finals, in my opinion, is not an accident. I think we really like just having a very consistent game plan, and like we want like a certain strategy to work, and we're just gonna try to approach it by running as many of those copies as possible. But in this Ruby Sapphire deck, basically what happened was I realized, especially like when you're on the draw, you would need to open turn one bell. A lot of the Ruby Sapphire decks nowadays don't run that turn one bell because they're mostly just running like the 4 copies of Popsicle, maybe a couple copies of Vitalisphere, but like not the full 4, right? So I really want to like maximize my potential to open turn one bell. So I played the 4 and the 4 in order to if I can keep bell my opener, I have a higher shot at being able to play it against these like really aggressive strategies. The other kind of like cut I made, like when I talked about earlier about Visions of the Future, I cut the grandma for the Visions of the Future. I know a lot of people, oh, that's crazy. Like grandma's one of the best cards. But I felt like when I was playing a lot of the mirror, I lost a lot when like my opponent was able to play Visions and just saw like way more cards than I did. So I was thinking like most of the time when I was playing items, like grandma was just ink. She was like quite expensive for what she did in my opinion. The body is actually not. I don't think it's that important in items. Like you mostly just want to set up your big Sisu like with the coil, and then you just win with Tamatoa, right? Like small one and big one with a dime, get a bunch of cards off a workshop, and you mostly want to spend your ink on like workshop related draw cards, not necessarily filtering through grandma. So I cut the grandma, and the other kind of synergy that you get to unlock is that when you have 5 ink, you can do the visions, and then you find your missing Sisu piece. If you have the big one, you get the small one. If you don't have the small, you get the small one. And then you can play Sisu on the same turn, and then you threaten to shift Sisu on the following turn. So I thought that combo was really powerful. So I definitely wanted to max out all those like combo pieces. I think everything else in the deck is like fairly standard. 3 workshop, 1 dime. I think it's totally reasonable. So yeah, I mean, I wanted the shift Sisu package. A lot of people were asking me why I didn't play B prep. So B prep I feel like was a lot worse because half of your matchups were gonna be Emerald, right? No matter what. And it was a lot easier for your opponent to kind of snipe it out of your hand with Ursula. And I really didn't want to be exploited in that way. So I just decided to run no songs at all. So it's either like in my opinion, you either run like all the songs or you don't run any of the songs at all. And I think in this deck you didn't really need it. I think a lot of the games I won were just off of like, you know, Bell to kind of stop the early aggression, and then shift Sisu, and then Tamato, and then another Sisu to kind of close the game. So in that sense, I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of build it that way.
Sure, yeah. No, I think it was actually a bit of a shame because as far as I'm aware, most of the games on stream that we saw you play with this deck, uh, well, I guess the one that people will remember the most, right, is probably when the aggro deck in the finals beat this, right? And that's such an unfortunate showing because sure, like you've also built it to try and beat that, but the aggro decks go so fast that it's you need to hit the perfect ramp. But some of the things you've said there made a lot of sense, right? Like if you can at least set up the small Sisu with the visions, you can find the big Sisu, try and crawl the game back. But some of these aggro decks and worlds were built like so aggressively that they just go so fast and win the game instantly. Um, yeah, so like it's really difficult in the finals, right? Like you mentioned, it's you've kind of built your decks around this whole strategy. For example, for you wanted to ban like the Ruby Sapphire decks. A lot of other decks, or a lot of other players, as you mentioned, wanted to ban the Steel decks. Um, and then maybe some of them wanted to ban the aggro decks, but I don't think we saw that too much. So yeah, it's just very interesting. Sorry, Moin, I know you're
Mhm.
dying to dive into things, so please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where to start. But it's I'm not memeing when I say that I think there can be a lot of value in having options as well. Um, and of course, only to a certain extent, right? My lists don't look vastly different. It's usually like two, three more different cards are included. Um, and within, um, I think with you as a player, personally, that's like the one hole that I'm kind of seeing where like there is sometimes a slight bit of value lost in how you build your decks, but um, it's really a minor detail, as I think outside of that you you build decks with a purpose, you build them very well, and you pilot them very well. And I think from watching these 20 hours of Worlds, it was very clear to me that well, at least that's how it came across, is that like mentally you were a step above basically everyone else, as it seems. At least, at least that's. I mean, maybe inside you're dying, but like to the outside, you looked like nerves weren't really getting to you.
You looked super calm throughout the whole thing, and like, would you say that
Mhm.
you did feel calm, or do you think inside you were kind of holding a lot of that back?
Uh, yeah. So, I mean, I played like under lights before, right? I
Hmm.
think the first couple times, of course, it's like really stressful. But I mean, I played like, at Fort Worth, I played a bunch. Like NACC, I played a bunch, and then I played a lot like here too, right? So to me, like the cameras are just like part of it. So particular, I wasn't like that nervous. Like it's just you just try your best, right? I think that's the main thing. You try your best, like don't let it get to you, and then whatever you get is whatever you get. So yeah, like
Okay.
whatever you saw was whatever I was feeling.
Okay. Right. And then there's one thing that I find interesting about your style of play, which is usually extremely quick, because it seems like you also value being able to take in all of the information that your opponent is giving you. And if you spend too much time overthinking maybe some of your decisions, you might miss some of the clues that your opponent uh, is displaying when they like are hesitating to play a card, or um, I don't know, almost exert some ink, but then don't do it. I think people were also very. Um, I don't think people were being super careful about all the tales that they were giving you. And at first I thought, okay, but if I know Ed is looking for these, I might just kind of fake some of these things. But I don't think that's what people are doing most of the time. I think usually you can gain some info that way. And I think there's a lot of strength in that way of playing. Um, of course, the downside is sometimes you might wash yourself when you might have been able to find a different line if you gave yourself like the little bit of extra time. I think in the finals, even if it wouldn't have changed anything, there was like a turn where um, like you Elsa the shark and then played the Ursula, where like maybe of the information of the Ursula, there's a world in which that changes your play. Um, or like I guess I guess the most apparent one was when suddenly you knew, so like you were so locked in what you wanted to do, that like somehow the genie ended up questing the turn you played it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was funny. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. We caught it pretty fast. I think. Like I think yeah, I was just like like mine is blank. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just I think how I would describe it is like you guys heard the term like vibe coding. It's like you use ChatGPT to like do all your coding. I think like now people are terming some of these things like vibe, like gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Like sometimes you just play based on like on your instincts, right? Um, and I feel like that's how I would describe like how I play the game. Like I've played like a ton of like card games in my life, right? All kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've seen so many like different patterns where it's just like usually whatever my initial instinct is usually the correct one. Obviously, like sometimes it's not, but like for the most part, like all the games I've played in Lorcana are mostly just from like pattern recognition and just going with like what your gut is telling you, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
why sometimes I just like play really quick because it's like my gut is just like just do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like yeah, sometimes it's wrong, and then usually I have some kind of self correction where it's kind of like okay, I probably shouldn't have done this, and like I recognize it's wrong. Maybe for next time I will correct my instincts, as it were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Right.
sometimes yeah, obviously your gut can make mistakes too, so
Yeah. So I guess like
you
play
follow it.
mostly based on instinct, and then if your instinct's wrong, your instinct will improve for the next time.
Yeah, you would hope so. Yes.
Let's move on to
Um,
the Amber Steel list, if that's okay, quickly. Just to get
Mm-hmm.
through, because I think everyone's seen your deck lists now kind of floating around online, so it's
Yeah.
just really good to get
Mm-hmm.
at least a brief overview. But Amber Steel was
Yeah.
one I was particularly interested in because, like you kind of mentioned
Mm-hmm.
at the start there, you felt like you wanted to have a little bit more value than your opponent, play a little bit more greedier. I could really see that
Yeah.
within your Amber Steel list for sure.
Yeah. So I think last week on like ICL, Skylar was playing the Amber Steel with BR Guest and Ariel as well. And I mean, I talked to him in like, various platforms, and his thought was like, okay, a whole new world is actually really bad on the draw, and so is Beyond the Horizon, right? So that's why he played Doc in particular, because it's kind of agnostic of going first or second. Me personally, every time I play Doc, sometimes I always get like stuck with like two copies or three copies in my hand. It's like really awkward. And I was just thinking like, what are the kind of other value engines that we can add to the deck to kind of give a similar effect? So I kind of started with his deck. His deck basically had like, three Sonic Warriors, maybe like four Smees, like three Lawrence, something like that. I think some of his like newer variations had Lady. I didn't really like Lady. I felt like it was kind of just like a do nothing card. I think Smee and Lawrence are also kind of like do nothing cards. So that's why I also cut those cards. I was also like a really big proponent of playing the 8 Singer 4 cards. I think those are really powerful, and I've been playing it ever since Troubadour came out. I was like, why are you picking just one or the other? I think it's actually correct to play both, just for the kind of redundancy, right? Like I'm a huge like redundancy guy, and especially like when you're on the draw, Smee is like really really bad, right? Like a lot of the time, you're not going to be able to like catch up on tempo if you're just on the draw with a Smee. So my main game plan with the Singer Force was, on turn two you play it, and then on turn three you just try to swing it back, right? You play Ariel, find a Zeus, or if you already inherently have a Zeus, you can Zeus. You can also like sing BR Guest. I mean, you can sing with Smee as well, but I think the Singer Force is a little bit stickier. You can sing it, and if you open Rhino, you can like go for a shift Rhino play. So I thought the deck was like extremely dynamic in being able to like catch back on tempo if you fall behind. So from like the obvious choices, cut Smee, cut Lawrence, right? So it's like, what do you add instead? So I kind of like looked through the cards, and I was really interested in Namari. I think she fixed a lot of the issues in terms of like having low strength characters only in your deck. Like if you kind of look at it, like getting the new Rhino for the 4 strength is pretty strong, but it still have like some issues, kind of like let's say they play locations or something like in the finals, right? Playing McDuck Manor.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he didn't like have the B prep, then my Namari would be great shape, right? Literally one shot a Manor by herself. So I thought Namari was really strong, and obviously Beast like a OG really good the original like value engine. A lot of the games you can just win just by like spamming Beast or like Namari and Beast, right? If you think about the run out, let's say you can develop a Beast and a Namari, you can draw for Beast first and then draw for Namari, discard, and then draw for turn. So it's like draw 3, discard 1. And usually what happens is in the late game, like the Cindy's, the Baby Rhino, the Singer Force, their value goes down a lot. And you can basically turn those into like a real card, like a real song. And like that was really enticing to me. So I basically took out all the kind of like lower impact cards in my opinion, like just like the 2 quester do nothings, took out Doc and added like just a slightly greedier like value engine. And just besides just drawing cards, like Beast is still like a decent body, right? Like a 3/5 can still challenge things. You can heal with Rapunzel. It's really good. Namari, huge, right? Five health with like infinite attack basically. And you can also heal over Rapunzel. So it gave like the deck a little bit more value for Rapunzel as well. And then the BR guest, we need some kind of songs, right, to play to kind of fill out the aerial curve. And you obviously play the 12 like steel removal, and it's like, what's the next best one after that? I've seen some people play like bare necessities, or yeah, I mean the ones after that, world's greatest. I feel like is too narrow, especially if you're banning Ruby Sapphire, for example, right? So I
Mhm.
felt like BR Guest was kind of the perfect way to kind of dig through for your value engine, right? Like sometimes, oh, let me just sing my 2 cost or sing my 2 cost to find an aerial, so you can find a song. So they kind of can chain into each other, or if you need a beast, shift Rhino, etc. I thought it added a lot of consistency to the deck. So yeah, based on that, it makes sense, right? You take out kind of the low value cards, add the high value cards, fill out the song package. and that's kind of where I ended up.
That's super interesting, man. Like the whole thought process of how you're kind of adjusting this baseline deck that you liked and wanting to add more value to it, and all of those decisions that you made, to me at least, made a lot of sense, right? To have the max amount of Singer 4s, so you feel a little bit more comfortable on the draw as well. Obviously, like the Smees and the Lawrences, yeah, like they're very, very good on the play. But yes, like I feel like I also, now that you say that, it makes a lot of sense of um how much worse they can be on the draw. For example, the mentioning the Be Our Guest, that's actually something that I remember Bennett spoke to us Moyne about, where he played some of them within like his Amber Emerald deck, where like if he played like a Sir Hiss or Ursula, how important it was to find something like a Prince John within Amber Emerald, right? Because like that card is so key to the deck. Like you really need to hit your Prince John on 3 so you can kind of get your discard engine going. And it's a similar thing here, right? If you want to find an area, like you mentioned, if you want to have that Shift Rhino, and there's a lot of like high value cards within this deck already, so Be Your Guest seems like the correct card to just try and find those specific cards that you need. For example, oh, I need a Pete in this exact moment. I need a Rapunzel to try and get some more value. So yeah, that's fascinating, the different way you went about building the deck. Moyen, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that like deck building process that Ed went through.
Um, you know what? I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, like the Namari still has me like somewhat skeptical. Basically, like the biggest location deck in the meta, you are banning, right? Which is part of why, like, some of its value is lost there. But I guess there's also some like Amethyst decks that might be running locations that you might be leaving open. Um, no, but in general, it's like, so these Smee Lawrence, these do nothings, they're like somewhat necessary if you want to be fast enough to actually beat the Sapphire decks, right? But if that's out of the question, then you don't need to be fast to beat the other decks. You can kind of just like actually outvalue them and then quest whenever you actually are controlling the board. So all of that seems to be making sense to me. I'm just curious, was like, if if the goal of this is to um, play on, like, first of all, play for tempo, play on board. Don't, I mean, this is surely very good against aggressive decks, but then also have the value to outvalue them. Did you consider look at this family as one of the song options?
Yeah, so that's probably the next one, right? So for me, the problem look at this family was that it took up like two singers usually. So
Mm-hmm.
what usually happens for me is like I need one of the bodies to sing, and then the other bot or sing Be Our Guest, and then the other one to actually like shoot something off. So when I like play look at this family, I kind of like got a little bit too behind on tempo, especially in like in the early game. But obviously, like in the late game, it's like a lot better, right? You can actually just super outvalue your opponent. But I felt like by that point, like the deck didn't feel like it needed that extra +1. It just needed to set up that kind of early game kind of engine, and it can just snowball from there. So I valued a lot of the like early game, especially in this deck, and like look at this family, I felt like was like, just like a little bit too slow for that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, makes sense. All right, let's move on to your final deck, which is the Emerald Amethyst deck. I would say, from like an overview of myself looking at the deck, who I haven't played the Birds deck extensively. Um,
Mhm.
it looks like kind of a standard one with Diablo. Notably, there's not too many discard cards, if any. I guess if you want to call Pull the Lever a discard card and Ursula, but they're kind of just staples within Emerald Amethyst at this stage. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we just saw you like play like pull the lever, pull the lever, pull the lever, like at one stage. So all I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
you doing was playing that like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
repeatedly at the stage. Yeah. So again, would love to hear your overview of this deck in general. And I have to say, before we even start, the inclusion of the Cricky straight off the bat has me a massive fan. I think honestly, this card is so underutilized in this color combination, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, I usually like playing the discard version of the deck, but usually that's better against like the control strategies, right?
Hmm.
But obviously, if we're banning the control strategy, then I think the tempo version of the deck is significantly better. I know a lot of the Europeans like to do like the half and half. They go like two Prince John or three Prince John, two or three like Peter Pan Shadow. Maybe it's like two or three Iagos, two or three Chips, something of along those lines, right? But I felt like when I was playing that, sometimes you got the wrong half. Like if you go like Prince John into Iago or like Peter Pan into Chip, it's not horrible, but like they don't like synergize that well. So I really didn't want to go down that path. And yeah, like I said, like discard was just a lot better against control and a lot like worse against these aggro strategies. So I mean, if I'm targeting aggro, then it makes more sense to just go all in on this like kind of tempo version of the deck. I think everything is like fairly obvious here. I think I basically 30 minutes before like deck submission was up, I decided to add the 3 kit cloud kickers instead of like the fourth copy of like the crab and the cricky and the Iago.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like had a feeling that there was going to be like way more like aggro strategies than like I expected before, like after I came to the room. Like you walk around, you talk to people, and it seemed like a lot of people were playing aggro strategies, right? So it's kind of like you have to lean more into that like tempo aspect of the deck, and I think Kit was like the perfect card for that, right? Like I think it was pretty good. Like I think I was able to kit back something more, so like Ursula stuff like that. I think it's really important, especially with the new Oswald that was making the rounds, right, for the last like couple weeks. And it's like if you have no interaction for that card, like it'll just go crazy. So Kit was like one of those kind of cards that can actually interact with that like early enough, and then after turn 5 you can play Elsa, etc., to try to target it. I think even though I didn't play Prince John, I think Bruno is still really good. I think the play pattern I look for is like obviously you try to curve out right 1 through 5, and then after that you just try to do 3+3 for the rest of the game, and then sing your Bruno. So for example, like you go Elsa, and then eventually you can play like multiple lever cards, Diablo, Kit to interact with their board, and then whatever your 5 costs you can sing Bruno, and usually you can like swing the tempo extremely hard in your favor, get rid of like 3 characters, and they start challenging, and you just take the whole board back, right? So I think Tricky, yeah, that card was really strong. It was kind of like a board wipe in a way, right? Like you can just set up a bunch of small guys, and then your opponent has to play around the Cricky, because if they don't, and sometimes they just have to quest, right, to win the game. Like some of these aggro decks, they just have to, don't have a choice. And it's like, well, if you have Cricky, you have it, right? And a lot of the time, if you have it, yeah, you just straight up win the game. It's kind of similar to me to Sisu, like the big Sisu. Quest for 3 also wipes out a lot of cards, gets a lot of value, right? So I think Cricket is really important, especially because there's not a lot of these type of um, big interaction cards that do like mass things, right, in Emerald or Amethyst. So I think Cricket is probably the closest you're gonna get. So I think that card is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, within this deck, I think a lot of it makes sense to me. Maybe one thing I'm kind of getting stuck on is like the full 4 pull the lever for Wong lever package, especially like
Yeah.
considering the fact that you are banning Sapphire, right? And to
Mhm.
me, the package is like decently strong, but like its biggest selling point to me is okay, I can actually quest out against sharks because I have this finally have like a heart removal for it. So I wonder like how come you still opted to play the full package?
Yeah, so I did notice like a lot of the Europeans also like maybe like 4 and 3 or like 3 and 2. But in my opinion, I basically always wanted to like play it or discard it off of Diablo. I know a lot of the Europeans ended up like dropping the 3 cost Diablo entirely, and yeah, in that package the levers are significantly worse. They can even play 0, and it's like, yeah, that makes like total sense. That's fine. But I think being able to discard the pull the lever for the Diablo shift is like insane. It makes it so like you have like a 3 cost, just like remove anything, right?
Mhm.
And like I said earlier about like the 3+3, I try to save like those like lever things when I get to the point where it's like I control the board, and then I can either use it to refill, remove, do whatever I need to do. So I kind of saved it for those moments or discard it for Diablo.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
basically I thought it was really important to have those copies at all times, and I felt like they were always like live whenever I had them.
Yeah. And then the other thing, this is basically this comes down a lot to something else that I think we should talk about, is which is like what what exactly were you expecting the field to be? How many did you maybe think were also on this specific lineup, or maybe how many did you think would be on the Ruby Sapphire, Amber Emerald, Purple Steel
Purple
lineup
Steel.
versus like maybe an Aqua lineup? Because like I think maybe with your ban strategy, how I personally might have gone about it, where if I'm banning Ruby Sapphire and I'm expecting a decent amount to play maybe the same lineup as you, I think some of the most important things to be like favorable or to have a good chance in green purple mirror is like one, the Kid Cloud Kick I think helps a lot to actually get a lot of tempo against all the 3-drops in Peter Pan and Diablo. And the other one is like Iago is absolutely huge. One is playing a lot of them, but two is also maybe having like a few efficient answers. So like if I was expecting this lineup to be played a decent amount, and I'm not planning to ban Emerald Amethyst, I think I might have opted to play some improvisers. So like what exactly was like going into the tournament? What did you think about the lineups? How often they would be represented?
Yeah, so I think my initial projection was like half of the field will probably build level 1, like exactly what I have, and have a very similar strategy. So I mean, the green purple I think is the most question mark, right? How do you want to build it? You can build it like discard tempo, or just like extremely low to the ground, as some people have been playing, right? They go Curse Merfolk, Flynn, go, like all that kind of stuff, right? And supposedly that's for like, just beating the mirror, right? I think that's like one of the main reasons why I did include the kit. Just being able to kick back like a Cursed Merfolk or a Flynn was like huge. So that was definitely a consideration. I think for the improvise for the Iago, I felt like yes, I wanted to do that, but it's like I had a kind of a hard time like deciding what I wanted to cut for those slots. It is very like a powerful like blowout card, but it's still like fairly niche, right? It's not like everyone's gonna play Iago. Not everyone's gonna be like on the same wavelength. Like, oh, let me just try to play this like evasive tempo game, right?
Yep.
Like I said, people are gonna try discard, and I felt like this version of the deck just completely like beats the discard version, right? And then against the aggro strategy, like yeah, if you can tempo them out of the aggro aspect, then you can win the game. So it was definitely consideration, but I think it was just a matter of like opportunity cost, right? Like if I decide to like maybe cut a cricky, another cricky or a crab or something like that, it might make those kind of like tempo aspects a little bit weaker, and I felt like I really didn't want to do that if I could help it.
I'm guessing Cricky really helped with some of those like evasive or like evasive offs, if you want to say it like that, right? Like you got a genie, they've got a
Genie
genie.
Wars.
Yeah, the genie
Yeah,
wars,
yeah.
right? Like I can imagine
Genie Wars.
suddenly that card being able to buff all of your evasives to like kind of wipe their evasive board. Again, like that makes a lot of sense to me, and that's another reason why Cricky fits into the deck, in my opinion. It's not only for all of the aggro stuff, but it's for to be able to trade up with all of your evasive cards against your opponent's evasive cards. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense to me. So like, even though you were expecting that color combination to be played a lot, like because within that color combination you expected enough diversity that maybe it would still end up being somewhat niche.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I don't remember exactly how many Iagos were there, but I don't think there was like that many. You know what I mean? Like there's a few, and like yeah, totally someone could like use improvise on your Iago, but I thought that instance was gonna be like few and far between.
Sure.
Because I have the doc open and I just checked. I think there was like 10 Iagos out of 28.
Yeah, that's not.
So it's reasonable to include improvisers, but like not a necessity.
All right, yeah, before we move throughout the rest of the podcast, I have to do a couple of quick announcements. So I've already shouted this event already, but myself, Spessy, and Kim are going to be casting the Disney Lorcana Open within Sweden at Malmo Games Week. This is taking place on the 30th and 31st of August. This is going to be like pre-release weekend for Fabled, so it's the last big Set 8 tournament before rotation hits. And if you don't make day 2, you can also go and play a pre-release of Set 9. If you guys are interested in checking out the event, you can use code PODCANA to get yourself 5% off the ticket price. That also helps support myself and Moyen, so we'd really appreciate it if you guys would do that as well. If you're interested as well, like one of the things that I was really happy about for this event. Obviously, it's a great opportunity to cast, but I think the pricing is actually pretty decent, especially for some of, like, I see all these events in America where they're like, well, the recent one, 50k prize pool. I'm like, man, I want me some of that. But honestly, I think the pricing for this isn't too bad. The top 32 is a box each. It's basically, and the pricing scales upwards from that. So that's, honestly, in my opinion, I think that's pretty good pricing for some of the EU events. So yeah, super excited to be casting this one. I am also casting another event within America. I'm going to be making my way over to the States. Myself and Baker should be hopping in the boot together for this one. This is the Ink Incorporated Open. And there's going to be a 10K taking place on the Saturday on September 6th, and there's also going to be a 5K Infinity format event taking place on September 7th. We have the full caster crew here. It's going to be myself, Baker, Garrick, JDZ, J-Bomb, and Color. So super excited for this one. Yeah, there's a QR code on the screen if you guys are interested in checking the event out. Be sure to do so. So Ed, after your Worlds journey, just give us some thoughts of like how you're feeling. How was the whole experience? What was it like? Maybe paint a picture for everyone who couldn't be there at the venue, at the event, right? Because all of us really enjoyed the broadcast, watching from home. But how was the whole experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was really fun. I mean, they flew everybody out, and they really did give us the VIP experience, as it were, right? The venue was like, yeah, perfectly sized for probably like 28 competitors. It was still like pretty big. They had a lot of room for like, judges, equipment, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it felt like, everybody was, special there, and that, you deserved it. I think the only thing for me was like the days were like pretty early, but I guess that's what it is for like DLCs and events anyway. Like I think they had us starting, like they want us to go to the venue at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and you have to play all day, right? Like fortunately for me, the first day I only had to play 5 rounds, so I could just go home early
You could sleep early, right?
But, yeah, but if you're like grinding it out, man, it's really really tough, right? And like how like the day 1 to day 2 thing where it's like, oh, I need to figure out all my matchups, let's play test all of them. It's the same thing here, right? And especially if you played all 7 and you have to like map everything out, it's extremely mentally taxing. But besides that, it was a great experience. Like they treated us really well. They gave us a bunch of free swag, and like that was a really really fun part of it, right? We got to go to like Disney World, and it was really nice like being able to hang out with everyone and like meeting everyone, right? Like I basically never get to see the EU guys, and it was really cool to like be able to finally meet them. And I haven't seen the Continental guys, for like 6 months, right? So it's one of those moments where yeah, for sure you'll remember forever.
It's awesome, yeah. I mean, it really shows, and I'm glad that they treated all you guys so well, because at the end of the day, for me at least, this game is all about community, right? We're here to compete and to show off our skills, but like you said, being able to meet people from halfway around the world is such a rare opportunity, and it's really great to see that within this game. Yeah, so after Season 1, I do have to say, it was a very successful Season 1 overall. Like, the game hasn't even been out 2 years, and it has been a really, really great competitive season. We had 11 DLCs in total, not to mention all of the other third-party events stuff we went to. But now, imagine everybody watching the world stream. They've teased there's 16 DLCs. The announcements come. They hit us with a banger first announcement. Best of 3 format. More rounds on day 2 in Swiss. And then Moyen. What did they tell us?
Yeah, I just don't want to get sad talking about it. And so I won't. First, I have a few more questions about Worlds, and then
okay, let's go back to Worlds. Let's do it.
Yeah.
One was like I think from watching you play Sealed, right? There was one thing that definitely stood out to me, which was the amount of uninkable one drops that are not good proactive plays on one, right? If it's like maybe an Arthur, I was like, okay, but like you opted to play, I think, 2 Kakamuras that deal 1 damage if you have a pirate, and 1 dump truck that is a 0/1.
A quick shot, don't forget quick shot.
Always deals damage. Quick shot.
Quick shot's good. Quick shot's good. I like quick shot.
Shot's quite good, I think, in the format. But those one drops had me super intrigued, and I was theorizing with Spessy when we were casting on the watch party. Is it like either he actually thinks they're good and maybe we just don't understand something, or maybe that they were like purposely put into the deck game 1 so that maybe your opponent sides out the 1 willpower stuff and then you side them out. So yeah, let me know what was the
or Ed just tells us, yeah, my pool was so bad I had to put these cards in.
No, my pool was so bad. No, honestly, okay. I was playing like yeah, we were all opening our pools, right? And then I like I was sitting in front across from Frank Karsten, and then like obviously you're doing your pool. Okay, so for next time I feel like they should just have 28 different tables instead of having to sit across from somebody. But anyways, I just look up for just like a quick second,
Oh,
right? And I saw
Frank's
like
build
a
was
genie.
insane.
He
Oh,
had
it
a
was filthy.
genie and like a
Yeah.
wrap. It was crazy.
He had it
Right?
enchanted
I'm
as
like,
well,
dude,
right?
what
Yeah.
enchanted are they? Right? I was like, dude, what is this pile? So I looked at my pool. I had 4 legendaries. Okay, I had Hercules, right? Return to Hercules, Scrooge, and Aurora. I'm like, bro, these are literally unplayable, right? And the other people are always Shark, Genie, these like heaters, right? So I think when I was practicing sealed, I was just like, okay, what happens if I just open like all like bad cards, right? So I think the obvious answer is probably like you're just gonna have to try to like aggro it out, or just try to like dump your hand as much as possible and just try to like turn sideways and win the game. So something I haven't done though at all in my sealed practice was to play like Kakamura Dump Truck or Desperate Plan Mulan. So I was like, okay, my intuition's like, okay, maybe I can do a thing where it's like I like dump like play all these cards. Maybe I can do 2 damage, right? Like I have a dump truck and a Kakamura, and I hit him with a 1-2, right? And just do 2 damage. Because 2 damage is really good. Like stuff like Twin Fire, really strong,
Ba-ba.
right?
Yeah.
Like take out an Archimedes or whatever, and you're like chilling, right? So I was like, okay, maybe I can do that. And then if I need to refill, I'll just use my Desperate Plan to refill. I already have like a Mulan. Worst case, like I think I did on stream, like, I draw early Mulan, just dump the dump truck, right? It's fine. But yeah, every time I tried to play it, like it was very off curve, and if I didn't draw a Desperate Plan, like my whole plan just fell apart, right? So basically what I did was, yeah, I just sided out all the uninkables, like 2 Kakamuras, the dump truck. I even sided out the quick shot. I felt like that card didn't really do anything. Like it seems good, but I feel like without the extra like ping damage, I felt like just the one wasn't enough for me. So I kind of sided that card out. I saw out the Mr. Smee. I tried to do the whole pirate synergy thing where I was like, okay, pirate synergy, okay. I kind of looked through my deck. I had like 10 pirates, something like that. I was like, okay, maybe this will work. But it turned out it did not work at all. So I just put in like, especially like when you're on the draw rate. Luckily, like I won all. Okay, so one thing is I won all my die rolls on day one, literally all of them. Right.
That
So
definitely
it gave me
helps
a
in
huge
sealed,
advantage.
right? Yeah, let's be
Definitely
honest.
helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I was able to get like the 2-0s except for like when I lost on the play on stream. But I was able to get the 2-0s, but I don't know what would happen, right? Like maybe I had to play like on the draw like an additional time, it might be harder. So I basically put in all the kind of 1-cost 2/2s. Those are really good on the draw. If everyone's trying to like aggress you out, then those 2/2s are like one of the better blockers. I put in like the 2/3, just like vanilla 2/3s, right? Those are pretty good on the draw. I think one card that I kind of debate on all the time is like the 6-cost Scar, Uninkable 4/4 Challenger 3, Quest for 2. I think when I first played that card, it like when you look at it on paper, it looks like really strong, right? It's like, oh, it has like, Rush, Challenger, all this kind of stuff, Quest for 2. But I felt like that 4 like willpower was like really low. Like I always never really got a ton of value off of it. But sometimes you're able to like challenge these like 3/6, like people are playing like 4 for 3/6 bodies or whatever. So against those things, it's like really good, right? So I did see a lot of people play like Amber for some reason. I don't even know why. I feel like that color is kind of bad in sealed. I would say most of the field was probably playing the exact combination, like Emerald, Amethyst, and Steel, or Emerald, Amethyst, and X, Red, like Ruby, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Sapphire was unplayable, Amber was like mostly unplayable. So those were kind of like your options. And whoever kind of opened like the really good like Emerald, Amethyst, like combinate like dueling cards, like Magic of Dispel is like insane. I think even the Cusco is really good.
Cusco really showed up on stream. Yeah, that was a really good
Yeah,
card.
that card is really crazy. So I felt like Emerald Amethyst is like basically no matter what in all my pools, I always play that combination. And then it's just a matter of like how good are my steel cards. So I have a lot of like, I think I pulled like one copy of the Genie, the 3-cost Genie. That card is really really good, especially like in the early like evasive wars. Like that guy just stonewalls like everybody. So I feel like steel was probably just like the best color in terms of like breadth and depth, being able to like block other evasives. And then Ruby was probably like the, if you really low rolled, they had the most density of like 2-cost 1/1 2 questers, or whatever, 2 for 2/2 2 questers in the game. So a lot of the time, like if you're on the play, you just try to control the board for the first like 5 or 6 turns, and you're just like double spelling 2 questers for the rest of the game and just turning sideways. Ignore your opponent, doesn't matter what they do, and then you can win. So that was kind of like my strategy going into sealed. And sometimes like you don't end up with either of them, right? And you end up with Kakamura Dump Truck. And yeah, so
To be fair, I had this similar experience where you almost always end up playing Emerald Amethyst Steel, but it's like
Mm-hmm.
it takes an outlier of a pool of packs to actually deviate and play different color. Like it happens, but like the default answer would just be those colors. Um, but I think to be honest, even if your legendaries were awful, I think like the card quality within the commons and uncommons was still like pretty at least decent for your sealed deck. So it was,
I would say I would say it's probably like below the 50% of like all the pulls I've ever opened.
Mhm.
I think the only two kind of redeeming cards were Panic. I think that card is
Oh, yeah.
crazy. Probably
Yes.
one of the best.
Moyen's
cards
favorite
on set.
saying, a whole stream, he'd be
Yeah.
like, another combat trick. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
that
Panic
card's
was the
crazy.
best one.
He was, yeah.
Panic is literally the best one, and then Knock, right? Obviously, like another
Yeah.
Panic. I didn't open Knock, unfortunately, but I had Basil. I think Basil was probably like, if I didn't open Basil, I would probably lose like a lot of the games. Like, I
Mhm.
think being able to just tempo out a single card, like your opponent's like 6-drop, is like crazy. So I think those two were like kind of the redeeming cards. Everything else I felt like was just kind of like mid. Because it's like, do you consider like Camilo Madrigal like a high roll to open it or not to open it, right? Like I opened the one copy, and obviously that card is like insanely cracked, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's like most of the pools have that card. Most of the pools probably also have like Archimedes, right? It's like a common. It's like not too crazy to open. So I felt like it wasn't really a high roll. It was just like just the normal cards, and then it's just a matter of like being able to pilot the normal cards and like not run into like the super crazy like stuff.
Yeah, dodge the people who open the absolute nuts, right? Like, it's definitely a
Yeah.
factor. Cool, Moyen, do you have
Well,
anything else you wanna ask? I noticed we have some notes down
right.
here. We have to talk about the death stare, the Ed stare, as everybody everybody calls it.
I mean, probably most people know about it by now, but sure, run us to the death stare and how it came about.
The death stare, bro. That's just my face, man. Like I can't help it. You know, like when I'm just like thinking and like doing my stuff. Like everyone has like a natural face, right? Like that's just what is presented, and then like my face just happens to be a death stare according to everybody. So that's just honestly very unfortunate. Maybe I can try to smile
Maybe
or
it's
something.
fortunate.
No, I think it's fortunate.
yeah,
I
maybe
honestly, as
yeah.
as a player myself, Moyen knows this as well, and my fiance Kim definitely knows this. I'm way too emotive when I play. Like, even in even at like high level gameplay, like I show my frustration, or even if I draw something good, like I'm way too emotive, and that's honestly something that does impact how you play, and as Moyen mentioned, like giving your opponent reads and stuff like that. So I know that's something I do have to improve. But yeah, there was a lot of funny Twitter posts of people saying like, "I'm gonna adopt the Ed stare at like my next DLC" and stuff like this. Yeah, it was very funny.
Well, I mean, I play like I play like a lot of poker, right, in general. And it's just like it's one of those things where it's like being as stoic as possible is like, what we call like, the optimal way to play the game, right? Just like, in poker you also don't look at your hand until it's like your turn, right? You really watch everybody else, like you said, like even though the tells aren't, I'm not gonna say like the tells are like a majority of the game, right? But it gives you like little just like tiny incremental advantages over like your opponent if you're kind of just watching what they do. I know, like you said, like a lot of people like emote a little bit, right? When they play the game. Some people, they draw a card, they shake their head, don't shake their head, etc. It like, gives away something. I'm not saying it's like a major thing, but it's like a little thing that, you can pick up to see like if your opponent's like in a good spot, bad spot. I've seen people where it's like they just start like, shaking their head. They're like just like, hand in their face type thing, right? Even though it's like, my turn or whatever. It's like, dude, what are you doing, bro? Just like, just keep it in and like try to play your best, right? But like, yeah, like you said, some people just can't help it. But I think you can definitely like train yourself to like not do that, right? You can just sit there, just like think about it within your own head, try to just stay as calm as possible, and I think that'll give away a lot less.
Sure.
That's like I haven't played against the Ed stare, but
You've played
I
against the
assume
opposite though, right, Moyen? I remember the story you always tell of like the opposite of where someone was like emoting. Wasn't this in like, I don't want to tell the whole story again, but in Seattle you had the whole thing of the guy who just like kept shaking his head, and you
yeah,
found that like
yeah. I mean, I'd probably rather have my opponent have the Ed stare than them like actually emoting all the time. But so yeah, I assume some people are still like it will have an impact on some people. And what I found really funny is like I called you like the natural counter to DKP, which is basically like I haven't played against you, but like whenever I play DKP, he likes to engage in like a good amount of table talk, which
He likes to do the
yeah, okay, that too, right? Show it to the meta file and everything.
the Manify, yeah.
But then
He's very talkative for sure, yeah.
Right, and it's like I think to some players that might like they might distract themselves if they're like actually wanting to respond to all of the things that he says, and maybe they lose concentration a little bit. But I felt like for you, it didn't matter
The
at all. You're just
counterplay,
sitting there,
right?
okay, you can say as much as you want. I'll just focus on the game. Job's not done.
Yeah. I mean, no, honestly though, like when people start talking, obviously it's like more than if they didn't talk, right? So obviously it still distracts you a little bit. And I think also something that he does is like, are you done? Are you done? Can I go? Right, kind of thing. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna completely ignore all that. I'm just gonna do my own thing. Just I think that's like part of it too, right? Being able to like develop a hard skin if people are like emoting on you, just yapping the whole time, doing all kinds of nonsense. Like you just have to like, be in your own center, right? And just like focus on what you need to do and then try to pay attention to like what they're trying to do as well.
It's like the Hearthstone emotes IRL, right? When they like when they BM you, bro.
Well played.
Well played, yeah.
Yeah, that's another one is like after every card you play, there's like a small thumbs up. Okay, go to the next action. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. I mean, I do that sometimes just by accident because it's like I play other games that like require your opponent to like respond or whatever, like Yu-Gi-Oh or
maybe that's
Magic,
where that comes
etc.
from, like from
For sure, it's like
yeah, response and stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh Magic players for sure. It's like,
Yeah.
yep, you're good, no
Okay.
response. Pass,
No counter spell. Yeah, I'll let it resolve.
I'll let it resolve.
Yeah, let it
Yeah,
resolve.
you can't counter spell me. It's Lorcana.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, Moy, sorry,
Sure.
go ahead and keep talking. Or if you want to lead into the topic where you didn't want to be sad about, but I do think it's important we talk about this as well.
Sure. Yeah, we could probably talk more about Worlds, but I think I have most things covered that I really wanted to speak about. So let's lead into the big announcements for the new DLC, for the new competitive season. We have 16 events, which at first everyone was like super happy about it. It was like, oh, 16 events, that's so many. And then as the announcement kept rolling in, people started to realize that like the market is expanding to new areas. We'll get 2 events in Brazil. I think like two events, but one of them is like a qualifier in Australia, like Australia, New Zealand.
Yep.
Then there's a couple events in China and Japan as well. And all of that's great. But then the other thing is also the event that Western scene has got, where like 3 in Europe and 3 in NA. So like that doesn't seem like a lot. But then when you add on top of that, those 3 events are like in the time span for the next 1.5 years, almost. Then it kind of starts to sink in that for at least if you want to be competing on the continent that you live in for European and American players, there will be like significantly less high stakes Lorcana to be played. And while I think in general everyone's happy to hear, okay, now we have something to look forward to again, where like I think for people that weren't qualified for Worlds, they were already kind of on a dry how do you say, stage?
Yeah, dry. It was a dry spell.
Dry
Yeah.
period.
Dry spell.
And where they were, dry spell.
Mhm.
They were already on a dry spell where they didn't really have anything to look forward to. They were like, okay, this set, why do I need to be the best that I can be? Because there's like no high stakes tournament to look forward to. And I think within the players that I talk to, that can lead to like some dropping interest. And while I'm happy we have tournaments to look forward to, I think the big one is for every set where there isn't a DLC that you can attend, like that is a major downside for your interest in the game. And one thing I didn't even mention yet is, okay, there's 3 events in Europe, 3 events in NA, but only 2 of them are core constructed. One of them is Infinity, and while some people will love it, some people won't, I think it's not quite the same as core constructed for your interest in keeping up with like the new meta. And so it's kind of like 2 core constructed events on your continent within the next year or so.
And people from playing the Infinity format will also qualify to the same championship that people playing technically a separate format have qualified to, which is interesting to say the least. Another really important point, which actually, like, honestly affects you, Ed, right? Because you're on West Coast of America. All the DLCs are East Coast, which is a big thing I've heard a lot of the NA folks talking about. So for you guys last year, I am very bad with the geography of America, but you guys had Vegas and Seattle at least for West Coast, correct?
Yeah, we had Vegas, Seattle, and then I think we had on the East Coast like Toronto, Atlanta, Chicago. Did I say Chicago already?
Yep. No, you did Chicago, and then Dallas, which is what I guess a little bit more
And then
central.
Dallas.
Yeah.
Central, yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean for me, I'm sad because it's like not on the west. I mean, I guess Seattle is like west coast, but still have to travel quite a ways for it. But personally, I mean, I still went to all of them anyway. Like to me, I would go no matter what because it's like the DLC value is definitely there for me, like regardless of where it is. If it's on the same continent. I haven't been to like the EU ones yet, but you know, you never know, right? I might start traveling over there if there's no more events here. I need something to go do, right? So I'm definitely probably interested in going to that, and also the Asia ones, right? That'd be really fun. Like I think one of the main things for me was like besides just going to go play, like I want to go like explore the cities, right? So like all those like major metropolitan cities, at least there's like some stuff to do there. I'm not gonna knock on like Milwaukee or Indianapolis or whatever, but like I know there's like the meme already on Facebook. It's like, oh, do you want to go see these cities? There's a bunch of nothing there, So it's kind of like for people that are traveling, it's like, dude, what am I even doing here besides playing the game? No, yeah, you are just there to like play the game, right? So I hope they do have some events where it's like in major metropolitan cities where it's like maybe there's some kind of landmark you can go see. And I guess that's why I'm interested in going to like the European or Asian ones, right? I haven't done a lot of international traveling, and it's kind of a good excuse to, besides just playing the game, like explore the world.
Definitely, yeah. Come over to EU, bro. Like we'll hang out, we'll have a good time. I think the only time we met in Toronto, right? That's when I first met you, right? I believe.
Yeah.
And that was honestly one of my favorite events, being able to travel over to a different continent, and it felt like so similar yet so different as well, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought the event was like super well run. So yeah. Myself and White have been talking honestly, and the same thought process of you, because there's less events now, we want to travel to as much as possible. And like I said, not being too familiar with America, that definitely puts a dampener on things for me. We're like, oh, maybe I could get to explore. And it's like, oh yeah, sorry, buddy, there's like nothing interesting in this city.
Grass,
right? Yeah.
Open land.
Yeah, but speaking of like trying to have more support and stuff like that, they have mentioned like Cooper, the like senior tournament guy at Ravensburger, mentioned that they're going to be trying to support more third-party events. And we've definitely seen that within Europe so far. There's been like an official one announced in Cardiff, Wales, in the UK. There is going to be another one within the UK in November. And there's always this weird thing to think about of like what quantifies or what qualifies an event as an official event, right? And I guess like if it's streamed or if they say this is an official event, it's an official event. There's a lot of events within Europe that are sponsored or supported by Ravensburger, where I believe they give a lot of product, whether that be boxes, playmats, stuff like that. But honestly, I think the real support is people want to see prizes that's worthwhile to be going to these events. So like these exclusive promos and stuff like that you can only get at these events. If there's like an official event, but it's still just boxes or just prizing and like I don't know, there even has to be more to play for, like top 4 top 4 of this smaller event actually qualify to EU champs. Or I know in other games they do lots of these different things where you could get either a buy into day 2, or I think Magic do something where like if you've accumulated enough points or you've won a certain tournament, you get like to start the day with some extra wins or something like that. And there's so many different ways you can do it, and there's so many of these other games that I feel like the Ravensburger team can kind of look at and learn from. And of course, they want to be unique and they want to do their own thing, but people just definitely want more, right? They want more official ways to engage with these events, and I think honestly, like exclusive prizing is gonna be one of the first ones, and that has to be worthwhile, right? Like Ed, I'm curious to hear your opinion on like, what makes it worthwhile traveling to these events. Like I said, of course, we want to go to everything because we're content creators, we're players, we're super, super passionate about it. But like, people they've limited time, they've limited holidays, they've limited vacation days. Like, what would you like to see? I think there might be a lorecast tomorrow with some further information, which I hope they clarify some things. But what are some of the improvements you would like to see, maybe?
So I mean, obviously, like a lot of people also compete for the monetary like value of it, and it's just like I feel like money. I mean, of course it's good, but I don't think it really compares to like all the prize cards you can get. Right? There's like tons of collector's value for like the prize cards, and that's I think the primary reason why people go to like all these events. So if they do have like exclusive prize cards, like you say, or like uncut sheets, stuff like that, that's like you can't just like go to the store and get it. I think it really drives people to like go to these type of events. So I'm really like you said, a lot of like other card games they like to do the thing where it's like you can get buys for like the certain rounds. That's also nice if you can like get to go to events where you get the buys and then those kind of transition to prize cards. That's kind of like one way to do it. But I think it's mostly just for the exclusivity thing, right? I think one other thing I kind of also talked to like the Ravensburger guys about when I was at Worlds was that like League is like kind of dying in my opinion, like where I am. And I think it's because it's like, the promos and the pins, they're nice, but it's like they give like a lot of them outright. And because of that, like the value of them are kind of not like that great. So like in a lot of other card games, like One Piece, for example, or like Pokemon, they give like these like, tournament packs, right? Yu-Gi-Oh! They give these kind of like tournament packs. And those things also like have a decent like amount of value, right? They have like some playable cards. It's kind of like you can like max rarity your deck. And I think being able to do that, like it's not even like that hard, right? I don't know like what the things they have to kind of jump through to get that to happen, but it's like, for example, let's say you can get like an enchanted Pete in a tournament pack, right? Like people, they would go to locals every single week to try to get stuff like that, right? So I think those are the kind of things that could potentially like, raise the interest in the game, or just have like multiple events like regional levels. Like Yu-Gi-Oh has like regionals, right? It's like a step between like the DLC equivalent of like YCS SJCs and like just your locals or like set champs kind of thing, right? So I would like to see something like a regionals, maybe it funnels to like a bigger thing, and then that thing funnels to worlds. So just maybe having like another intermediate step, something maybe you can play in like once or twice a month, because I mean ultimately I think we were kind of spoiled from season one. Like we literally had them like every single month, right? And sometimes even on different days for NA versus EU. So some guys like DKP, man, he traveled literally the entire world to go to all these events. And shout out to him, right? Like he worked really hard on the game and he really put everything into it, and it really showed, right? So if you want to give people that option, I think that's definitely something that you should be able to do, right? And if you don't get to go to that many events, then it's going to be really hard to kind of replicate that.
I think you made a great point there, which it's actually very important that I think it's very important that specifically you, someone who's made it to second place at Worlds, does actually recognize that. I agree with this point. I do think we were spoiled for season one. I really do think we were for each month, and that's a difficult thing to change in people's minds moving forward, because once you set the precedent for something, it was the same as like the set champ stuff and like, oh, they're taking away something from us. What are they giving us? It's like kind of what you start from this foundation. It's very hard to change that without having some sort of like negative feedback. And if you set the precedent to be, these massive DLC events like every month in this kind of period of time, then I think that's what people were probably expecting. And I don't blame people for expecting that. And people also want that. People feel like there's the demand for that. Of course, like you mentioned more as well, it's like we do need to think that it is a very, very positive thing that the game is expanding globally. Brazil getting championships, China, Japan. Of course, China, Japan regions, they're still catching up to us at the moment. But I think they said they plan to be able to coordinate with us for maybe the next Worlds. It might have to be the Worlds after that. That when by the time they're on like the same set as us. But like all of these things are definitely positive, but there's a lot of negatives that have been rolled into it as well. So honestly, as frustrated as we all are, I really do trust Ravensburger that they will do the right thing. We've seen them listen to us in the past. We've seen them make changes. Like I know in the past the kind of closest major change we've seen was like, you know, the demand for the events was like 500 players and they increased the cap and stuff like that. I think increasing the cap this time may not be enough, but at the end of the day as well, maybe we forget this, and I guess as players, this isn't really our concern, but they do have this massive looming IP over them, which is Disney, right? Like, and I'm sure so many things have crazy approval processes that we don't even realize, right? So I'm sure when the community reaches out and what we're doing is actually a very, very good thing. In the midst of all of the negativity, it's like critical feedback, and it's definitely important for us to communicate that. And I'm hoping that we're being heard and that they're listening to us. That's the only way we're gonna try and make a change. So I'm hopeful that, you know, something positive will come out of this, and like you said, Moin, at least we do have something to look forward to now, to practice for. And like you said, Ed, I hope I'm able to go at least to NA and like meet more of the community and stuff like that. I've always said this for all of our podcasts. The most important thing for me is still the community. So I want to go to these events to meet people, to hang out with people, more than anything as well. So yeah, I'd love to hear your overall thoughts, Moin, like our general final thoughts on it as well. If there's anything that you would like to see, I'm assuming it's a similar thing what we discussed, right? Like maybe more regional level events, some type of smaller qualifiers, points based system. I know Brendan's talked about like the advantages and disadvantages to having kind of these points based systems where, for example, if like set champs suddenly started to award points, I think you definitely have a lot more engagement than if it was like meaningful kind of qualification stages. But does that then, I don't know, sometimes I feel like this kind of contradicts the thing that they want set champs to be this entry level competitive event for aspiring competitive players to get into, but then similar to what it was at the start, which was, I mean, we all look back at it as like the good old days when we were hunting for stitches and stuff and farming events. It's like that's not really what Ravensburger wants these events to be, but they want it to be something similar. So I think it's a fine balance, and there needs to be kind of a clear definition of course, these DLCs are super competitive events. These set champs are like casual / competitive level events, and then there just needs to be like a super solid official mid tier that offers worthwhile exclusive promos that you said, Ed. I think that's what it was, because the exclusive promos is what adds the value, and not only that, the playable cards as well. I fully agree with you, but like if I open some like organized play pack from League and I could get like an enchanted uncommon card or an enchanted or an alt art of like a super playable common, that would be way cooler than maybe some of these other cards that aren't as playable. And it still means that the collector base would still collect them and the players would still want to get them as well. That's often the balance as well. So sorry, Moy, go ahead.
Yeah, for those prizes at something like League or at smaller level events, I don't even think these promo cards, if they didn't end up having great monetary value, I think that would be fine. It would still be something exclusive that you can aspire towards achieving. To me, the biggest thing in general is really I think it would just be a shame if there's like a set where you don't have something to aspire towards, no DLC or big event to kind of be able to attend. And if that's the case too often, I think that really hurts the game. So to me, it is very important, but not just to me. I think to a lot of players that have at least some sort of competitive aspirations. It's incredibly important that you at least have something to play for in a set, and because the worst thing is if you let's say you play the DLC of set something, let's say 10, and then set 11 there's nothing to play for, so you're like, oh, I'll drop the game for a set, and maybe I just return the set after, maybe I won't, but That's, I'm not saying that's me, but I think that's like a very, very dangerous possibility if it exists.
I mean, for me, I want to like I don't want to say that I dropped the game, but like I definitely took it a lot less seriously right after like Continentals. Like that was like what set 6, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then basically for all of set 7 there was like nothing, right? Completely nothing. And then set 8 is just yeah, I mean that's the world's format. So it's kind of like there was quite a long hiatus, right? And especially like yeah, what if you don't what if you're not even playing at Continentals or at Worlds? Then what? When was the last thing that you were playing before that?
Yep.
So there was actually a huge hiatus for like just your average player. And that yeah, like you said, it's really like dangerous for the game, especially like if you had so many events coming up to that point and you already have this kind of expectation that there's something really high you can play for, right? Like golden Mickeys, just these like really exclusive prizes. So I would hope that at least for every set there's like some kind of DLC or some kind of major thing that you can go play in.
Yeah, that actually really, really adds to it. That we like, yes, we were spoiled, but us being spoiled, it's already been some time since we were spoiled.
That's
So like,
true. Yeah.
people right now, they're not like incredibly happy. They're already having this feeling of, oh, we actually didn't have something to play for in a while. So then if then on top of that the announcement is, oh, there also won't be that many events near you to play for, I think that kind of just like adds to some of the existing frustration.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, the whole thing you said there, Ed, about like the long break. Myself and Moyen were probably examples of competitive players who didn't engage with the game as much. I mean, I started playing like a big Star Wars Unlimited competitive circuit because I wanted something else to compete in. So, of course, I like exploring other TCGs and stuff like that as well. But what happens if somebody else goes to another card game where there is a consistent organized play program with like big events and maybe even better pricing, and they kind of find this. It's events and tournaments are it's so crucial to the long term success of TCGs, and I think this hiatus is yeah, it hasn't done the game or the players any favors at the moment. But like we said, like we're not trying to be too negative, but it's also important to speak about these things, so hopefully they don't happen again in the future. Can I pick your guys' brains on something really quickly in regards to set 9? So set 8 in general, once I heard the announcement of set 9, because I wasn't competing in Worlds, honestly, I'm like, bring on rotation. Bro, I'm so excited to like try a whole new format with like loads of different in combinations. Ruby Amethyst ain't going to be the same deck we've played all of these sets. Everything's going to kind of open up completely new. However, around the structure of set 9, we know it's going to be a big reprint set, and they've added the new rarities and stuff, which I think will add a lot of value to the boxes. Crazy collectors will open loads of cases and boxes and stuff like that. But for the players who've been playing for this long, like if this set is a significant amount of reprints, I don't know personally how much I would want to engage with the product. Of course, like people will always open packs and open boosters and stuff like that. But I know in other games, for example, One Piece, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Moyne, but they have a thing where they basically kind of have like a reprint set, and then they kind of keep doing new sets. Other card games have some reprints woven in from set to set, maybe 10 reprints here, 5 reprints here. But I wonder how people would look at that differently if there was like kind of like this core set, this core reprint set as a separate product and then a new set. Maybe people would react badly to that because they're like, well, now they want us to buy 2 products, right? So I'm curious to hear you guys' opinions on maybe some of the positives and negatives of that, and if you think set 9 will just be fine. Maybe I'm just overthinking this, but it's stuff I'm thinking maybe other players are also considering, right? I'll start with you, Moyne.
Um, yeah, no, I think there doesn't, to my excitement, there doesn't even need to be that much added because like something removed from the start pool already adds a lot of depth and excitement for like how to now approach some deck building
Mm-hmm.
and gameplay and everything. So like, I'm personally not concerned because I think it will still be like the biggest shake-up we've had.
Mm-hmm. Ed, curious in your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the way that One Piece does it, they do like PRB, right? So
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's like they make like fancier versions of the cards. I guess that's kind of what they're trying to do as well in Fable, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be like all new artwork with the original cards. And I guess for like collectors, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, I think you're probably asking like the wrong people, because I think for us, I don't know about you, but like for me, I feel like I'm like a player first, but I also like to play the enchanteds, right?
Hmm.
So for example, like if I'm playing like Maui, I would like to play the enchanted Maui, but if it's like um something that's enchanted that's like not like the golden Mickey, right? It's not like I'm gonna play that in my deck. So to me, the value is less because I can't play that card. So I do like the playable enchanted cards, and like those are the main cards that I kind of go for. And I'm sure a lot of the community are also like kind of like that. So if they do have like stuff like that, let's say like Maui, or maybe not Maui because he already has the enchanted treatment, but if like another really playable like card got the enchanted treatment and it's like, you know, in the new set, then definitely like people will be like going for those type of cards.
Sure. No, that makes sense to me. Um, before we kind of close it out there, for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure everybody knows at this stage, but yeah, they have announced a new format. It's best of three. It's 8 rounds of Swiss on day one, and then 4 rounds of Swiss on day two. Um, do you know if they've announced uh, if the Swiss like standings will be reset going into day two, or do you reckon? I mean, you guys have played more variety of card games than me. In other TCGs, is it usually you kind of keep your if you go 8-0 and you move on to day two, do you then go like 9-0, 10-0, or do some games tend to kind of reset the Swiss standings?
Well, I'll just assume that you'll keep it. I don't think it's reasonable to just take that away from players. Also, the way it's been announced, it doesn't look like there's like a cut after day one, but it's just like everyone can play 12 Swiss ones, right?
Oh, actually,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean,
Go ahead, Ed. You're good.
yeah, I was gonna say my understanding is yeah, like what Moyen said, like you just whatever your record was on, you just carried on. I know CCS historically is like that. It's really funny. Like I remember when I went to go play, basically it's like 8 rounds and then your ninth round is the next day. So like no matter what you have to show up. And maybe that's a smart marketing thing. It's like you're in the area anyway, you can go play side events. But yeah, you keep the same, you know, record you had for your first day, and then eventually, you know, wherever you make it into, like if you make it to top cut, you just, you know, continue with that. I think it does make sense that way if you do decide to like make Swiss like 12 rounds. Like I think 12 rounds of best of three in one day is just
Yeah, that's
insanity. You know what
crazy.
I mean?
Mm.
Yeah,
Like
that's not possible.
it's just not possible. And I think even like I went to like a One Piece regionals where it's like just to try like the best of one thing, right? And like even for me, I feel like playing 10 like best of one in like one day is actually, it's not horrible, but it's still like fairly long, right? Just
Mhm.
being able to like have to run through all these opponents, I think is totally different than like if you play best of three with like one person, like like 5 times or 6 times. Like just the process of, you know, having to wait around, go to the table, etc., chit chatting is actually very mentally taxing, right? So I think the 9 rounds of best of three is gonna be a lot, right? Because especially we're used to like, you know, playing best of two, and people still go to time playing best of two, right? So yeah, that's gonna be like a huge kind of test for a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the big one. It's okay. More rounds, great, love that. Even if it will, I expect it to be like a logistical nightmare to have 8 rounds of best of three into four more into, and then also top cut next day. I think that's a lot, but I think that's something general as a competitive player, you're happy that there's more games of Lorcana, right? That's not a bad thing. Um, but yeah, it also means for now they are saying goodbye to the 2 round format. I think on stream they said, you know, they're open to revisiting it, and they're looking to gather more feedback with the format. But um, yeah, that's something where I'm like, I'm I'm getting the sentiment that like most people are happy about that format change. I personally am not, but like if if it's true that the community is happier with the new format, which I guess we'll have to so, like we'll okay, some of it we'll see from just the community reaction now. I think some of it we'll see when we actually had those tournaments with the new format. If the community is happier playing best of three, then I don't mind it that much. It's not like I'm the biggest opponent of best of three. I just think the 2-1 format was kind of like achieving a lot of things that were good for the game and that best of three couldn't have achieved.
Do you want to talk about some
I
of
mean,
the? Sorry, go ahead, Ed. You're good. You're good.
I was gonna say the best. Oh yeah, like everyone's favorite conversation: best of two or
Yeah.
best of three. I mean, I was just gonna say, like, for me personally, like, I played both formats, right? And I've done well in like best of two. So personally, I like best of two just because it's like it equates the die roll aspect, right? Like, I just like the whole weekend, I was basically telling the Ravensburger people, like, man, look, if you just take all the data from everyone from this weekend, check like who won the die roll and who won the game. It's probably something crazy. It's like 20%, 25%, even amongst like top players of the game. And I think like just it being that egregious, like I don't want it to be just like, oh, whoever wins more die rolls is just gonna like end up winning the tournament, right?
Yeah.
So I think something else that we learned from like this weekend was like how strong these like extremely proactive strategies are, right? Like if you're on to play with triple daisy, you literally cannot lose. It's actually impossible, right?
I mean, it's
So
possible, but like
it's possible, but highly unlikely. How about that? It really skews the percentages like a lot in your favor. It's like how like when you play chess, there's that little bar on the side where it's like tells you the percentage of you winning or losing.
Mhm.
If you play triple daisy on the play, it's like right. Like it's possible it goes down a little bit, but like most likely you're gonna win, right?
Mhm.
So I think if we end up going that way, like yeah, we might just end up in a format where it's like everyone's just gonna play extremely like aggressive degenerate strategies and they're just going to try to win the die rolls and maybe you just win a ton of die rolls and then you're on to the next day. So
Yeah.
I mean, is that what we want? I don't know, like I guess maybe like a lot of the community wants something like that.
Yeah, I think like I mean like EV wise, it will still not be a good, like it won't provide you good chances of actually doing well at an event to just play a deck that wins on the play and loses on the draw, because then you have to win all the die rolls. But like let's imagine you don't think you're a very good player. That might be the best chance that you can get, because if you play like a deck that's decent on play or draw, then maybe you just won't be good enough to defeat enough of your opponents. Yeah,
I think
I think
yeah.
just with the die roll also in best of three, it it's not that big of a problem as long as there's like a significant skill difference between the players, and like you can maybe even after losing die roll on like you would still win 2 out of 3 games often enough. But I think especially at Worlds where like the skill gap wasn't that big, there was like very good players there all around. I think that's really when the problem starts to kick in, because at that level it is not easy to like win a best of 3 while going second 2 out of 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also another debate where it's like, is there any skill in playing like aggro strategies, right? Yeah, that's gonna rile a lot of people up. But it's like, I think if, yeah, like you said, if you're like the more casual player, I think having the best of three, being able to win the die roll and like, play aggro strategies is probably the best like EV, right? That you can have. Because like I'm thinking about it even from my perspective, like there are just some unbeatable kind of combinations if you're on the play, right? And like you basically deny your opponent from being able to play the game. I think that's how I would describe it. That's why I think like back in like set 3 or set 4, that's why I enjoyed playing like Ruby Amethyst, right? I felt like in a lot of the mirrors, if you were really good at the game, you were able to like just make more decisions, and usually more decisions equals like more skill involved, and usually it like yields to the better playing a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like look historically back on like all my losses and all the DLCs is usually against like some kind of like steel deck that just did something like extremely unfair against me, right? And but that's just like kind of the nature of the matchup, right? Like if I'm playing a fair thing and you play a fair thing, then usually it's like usually skill like comes out on top. But if it's like someone gets to do something like outside of the fair gameplay, then that's kind of how you can lose.
For the for the best of two format as well, I just want to talk briefly about again something we've also mentioned on the podcast so much, just what that system made players do, in my opinion. Like all of the bad stuff it made players do, of what the system incentivized, right? It's like, oh, we're on the bubble. The amount of players we saw dice rolling, the amount of players we saw playing game threes because of this system, right? And I think maybe that's another thing that got people, you know, maybe what you were saying, Moin, of if somebody, I'm not going to say if somebody wasn't as skilled, but somebody could play a best of two format, 9 rounds, and they tie all day, right? And that feels awful. They're like, I hate that. I'm sure instantly if that's someone's first experience, I hate the best of two format all day, and Yeah, I can understand that as well. But I mean, we saw all of the stuff that went down for Best of Two, some crazy stuff. But do you also feel like that it like the format could still exist, but like all that stuff just needs to be like way more heavily moderated, right? Like way more looked into that. But then also it's like how many judges can you have watching all of this stuff? How many things,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, so I think we were kind of getting, or we were going in that direction where like it was getting less of an issue
Mm.
because at least in the European DLCs and I had the feeling like it was they were more and more cautious of it, like they were regulating it heavier, actually paying attention to the correct tables where that would be prone to doing that, and they would also be punishing it very, very heavily, which led to people doing it less and less. I think part of that also would have to be lifted by the community. I think that is like for dice rolling or playing a third game instead of just reporting the score that you actually played for is like so against integrity that if you see it, you should tell a judge. So like to an extent we were like improve like this. We were improving at this, but like I don't think it would ever entirely go away. I do think similar things might be incentivized in best of three at times, but like that. So I don't think there's a format that doesn't where like there isn't any of these loopholes that people can exploit if they're willing to break the rules. If they're wanting to break the rules, like they will try and do it. But yeah, that was definitely I think one of the biggest issues. But the one point you made, which is like okay, if player draws a lot, they won't be very happy with the format. And yeah, that's I think a sentiment that went around a lot. Like people didn't enjoy the feeling of a draw very much. But people were also like out of their mind coping, saying, okay, I'm sure I would have won game 3. I'm like, you don't know that. It's like, you don't even know if you would have won the die roll. What if you are going second game 3? It's like, and I'm sure people will realize, or okay, actually people won't realize that, oh, they actually aren't always winning game 3. I think people will just find a new excuse. And now the new excuse is, oh, I went, okay, we have 12 rounds now. I went 7-5 in this DLC, pretty decent, but yeah, I lost 8 of my 12 die rolls, so it's not my fault. It's like people will always have some sort of excuse for why it's the game's fault how they performed and how it's not their fault. But I do think losing a certain amount of die rolls has a much more real impact than like saying, oh yeah, I drew all these games, because the biggest difference is you actually have full control over, like you are, or not full control. Let's say you have the very same preset conditions as all the other players, right? If you drew all round or all day, right, and it's not easy to go 2-0 in a round. I'm not saying that, but like if there is players in this event that had the very same conditions of going first and second the same amount of games that were able to manage to go 2-0 a lot more often than you. Whereas like if you feel like, which you, at least with the game, how the game's right now, if you lose a lot of die rolls, you will have a worse chance, right? It's not impossible, but you will have a worse chance at performing well, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's just always like an aspect of best of 3 that I didn't like. The other one being that slow play is actually incentivized in best of 3. That's like the loophole that best of 3 has, right? If you win game 1, a long game 1, you have like a very real reason to not rush to game 2, but actually play slower. And that also leads to people playing the game less. So that was like one of the big selling points for best of 2 for me, where as if you don't finish game 2, there was no points for game 2. So like it was always in both players' interest to actually finish the game. And that, I think that was a great thing.
Yeah, the dice roll point makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people forget that. It's actually when you explain it like that, it makes it so clear where in 2-game format everyone is basically on the same playing field. But yes, in best of three, people can run hot and win all of their dice rolls, and that actually is a much bigger factor that would affect their performance rather than the difference of if everyone's just doing a 2-game format. Since we're talking about the best of three and the 12 rounds of Swiss and stuff, Moin, I know you did a little bit of a breakdown on some calculations here. If these events are roughly 2,000 players as they were in the previous season, would you mind kind of reading out the records you'll need to get to top 32? And then we'll also get into if the events are double the capacity, if they're 4,000 players, how the cut changes.
Yeah, so if they are capped as the same amount of players, then with 11-1 and 12, like there might be 1 12-0 player, but with 11-1 and better, you'll be safe to make the top 32 cut, which will immediately qualify you for your continentals. And then there should be, this is disregarding ties and DQs and stuff, but if there's no ties, there should be around 33 10-2 players, and of those 25.5 will make day 2. So like most of them, but there's still a significant amount that won't. And if because so I don't know, I personally have my doubts that we'll actually have like 4,000 player events, but like some people are saying, oh, these amount of rounds could actually support that. So like let's just, and I think the demand could actually support that as well, funnily enough. Especially if we have like less events, I think we might actually be able to support 4K play events. Okay, so for 4K play events, there would be like with 11-1 and over, you're still safe, but there would be around 66 players that make 10-2, and only 19 of those players will actually make top cut. So most of them would actually miss, which means realistically, more likely than not, you'll have to go 11-1 or better to actually make top cut.
Super consistent, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. The bigger the events, if the cut remains the same, right? You know what I mean? It makes perfect sense. So, what's the? I mean, I'm not smart enough to calculate this in general or fast enough. Do you know what the general difference? Because I know people always set this metric of from last season for a 2,000 player event to just make the top 64 cut with 9 rounds. It was. No, it's the same percentage, right? They always say like, oh, like the top 3% of players make it, right? That doesn't change with more rounds, does it?
No, well, no, that doesn't change. It's independent of the amount of number of rounds. It's more like just how many players from how many players make top cut. So we always had like we had a top 64 cut, right?
Yes, correct.
Irregardless, yeah.
Yeah. So we had twice the cut.
Yeah,
it was like for 1K.
It was
3% or
regardless
like,
of account, wasn't it?
3%, and
yeah.
The other one was like, it was like yeah, for the 2K it was like 3%, right, or something like that.
Yep.
And then for like the 1K it's like twice that, right? Maybe like 5% or 6% or something like that. But I mean, this one is even crazier, right? 32 out of 2,000. That's like almost like 1% or something, 1 point something percent. So like when I saw that, I was like, dude, this is gonna be really hard to make like top cut, right? And like it's very possible, even with like so many rounds where like a lot of good players, it's still possible that they won't make it.
It is very crazy. I've never played a 2K. Well, I've played 2K play events, but I've never played one with this small of a cut. And yes, we have more rounds, but just if we run through it, like let's imagine you have like 2 early losses, kind of ruining your tiebreakers. Even if you go 10-2, you might not make it. Even if you win the next 10, or let's say you're like 8-2, 9-2, and then you lose your last round with 9-3. You have like 0% to make it.
Yeah, it's really crazy, but I mean, I think maybe that's what they want. It's like they just want it to be really, really exclusive, and I guess they're getting it right.
Yeah, because I mean, the big one is also make this cut, you are immediately qualified for continentals. If you made the cut at the DLC recently, then you had to win
two more games, right?
More best of threes to actually make it. And I'm not opposed to it being exclusive. I'm not opposed to it being hard to make top cut. The only caveat is like I don't like that I will playing a role in that, but we'll still try our best to do well, even when sometimes the dice are or are not on our side.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's like the philosophy. I mean, that's like the philosophy I try to follow. Like a lot of people, when they talked about, oh, super sealed and like triple deck, and oh, this format sucks, blah blah blah. But it's like, I'm just playing within the rules that are given to me, right? Like you
Mhm.
make the best with what you have, and I think that's probably like a life lesson, right? Like you do the best with what you have, and just have like a positive attitude towards it. And I would say you would probably do better than if you're just like, oh, this sucks, I don't want to do this and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, if this is what it is, then this is what we're gonna do, right?
Sure.
100%. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Well, I think there's two sides of the coin, right? One is, of course, we try our best with what we're given. The other side is still we have to let people know how we feel about these things so they can adjust these things.
Yeah,
Definitely.
agreed.
Cool. Well, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the podcast. We did skip over this building section, but that's because last week we just talked about worlds and worlds happened, right? So I guess this week definitely leave us a comment down below in regarding how you guys are feeling about all of this news. I'm really hopeful. Like I said, I really hope that there is like some type of announcement in the Lorecast tomorrow. I'm glad that they're having those weekly to like communicate with us a little bit more. If I'm being completely honest, the last few ones during the week have been very like, I don't know. I kind of thought the point of the Lorecasts was to be a bit more communicative with us, but they've kind of just seemed like fun staff saying hi events and kind of showing off products, which is like fine. I guess I don't know. It's like the whole idea of we're communicating more, but how much news is actually coming from that communication, or how much relevant content or information are we getting from it? Like again, it could be a simple thing of this was just supposed to be a cool new thing, and people's expectations were up here for what they expected it to be. But overall, it's more communication, so I hope it improves over time. Yeah, before we close off, Ed, I'm going to give you the chance to shout yourself out, and I thought it was really nice the kind words you gave to everybody who like supported you throughout your time of practicing for Worlds and stuff like that. So yeah, take it away if you've any words to say.
Yeah, I mean, I already shouted out the people I wanted to shout out, but also to the team, right? Like, just not like even though they didn't like help me exclusively for Worlds, like the day in and day out during the event, etc. Like, there's still a really good support system, and like throughout the times, like it makes the game more fun and enjoyable, right? So yeah, shout out to the Team Tianhu, and also SLTC. Um, it's really important to like bounce ideas off of just people and just like get feedback, right? And of course, like Lorcana is a two-player game, right? You can't play just by yourself. So yeah, I think the community aspect, like you said, is very important to me. And like if the community is not there, then it probably wouldn't be as enjoyable for me.
Sure, no, 100% agree. And you heard it here first, guys. The runner-up of the World Championship listens to Podcana, so you guys should too, right? Honestly,
Yeah.
that makes me feel so nice that
I guess okay.
yeah.
One more thing, yeah. So then another reason why I wanted to come on this podcast specifically is like I like to support the people that support me. You know what I mean? Like I know when you did like the card market predictions that you thought I was gonna win,
Hell yeah,
and like
bro.
JDZ also like believed in me. So I want to like come on the program when people actually believe in me, right? So I think that's why like I'm really happy to be here and like follow your advice.
No, awesome, man. Yeah. If I'm being completely honest as well, I thought that the semifinals was stacked with people who 100% in my opinion deserve to be there. They put in so much work, consistency. I mean, honestly, that was why you were my pick, Ed. Like you probably the most consistent person I saw performing through everything. Bivens, all the work Bivens put in as well is just absolutely insane. I think he said I saw some quote somewhere that he played like 80 hours of Lorcana a week, which to us mere mortals is like crazy. And
Yeah, I didn't do any of that to be honest. Like most of my play testing is just like I'm on my Lorcana app, just like looking through like possible cards and stuff, maybe building decks, but like not a lot of playing, just a lot of theorizing.
Mhm.
I guess that's kind of the way I kind of like to play the game. I just like to like theorize, like play patterns, and then I just go off of that, and
Hell yeah.
hope that's good enough.
Yeah, and of course, as you mentioned, DKP traveling around the entire world to get there.
Yeah.
Like it was such a cool story to get the qual in Melbourne and then to come to Worlds and to take it all. So yeah, props to everyone, everyone in general who made it to Worlds. Like I think everybody deserved to be there. I'm confident Moyen is gonna be there next. I'm telling you, man.
Well, I'll try, of course. Honestly, to me, the shout outs to everyone that like was never shown on stream, right? You were there at Worlds, even if the world didn't get to see you.
Yeah.
100%.
Actually,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't watch any of it, but I guess if you think about it, right? Like, I had like multiple streams, and then yeah, so there had to be like a lot of people that got left out.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just kind of like
Yeah, you can't show
popularity
28
contest.
players. It's
Yeah.
not possible.
Yeah. I mean, it was nice that they at least kind of showcased like day 2 every single game. I mean, I guess there was only
that
like
was-
7 matches anyway,
Mhm.
so it was good that they at least kind of went in order and did that. But I still felt like if I didn't win like my first couple of rounds, I wouldn't even be featured. Like, I think for some reason, like, I feel like they don't like featuring me unless they absolutely have to. Like, I think one of the matches that I thought I should be featured instead was like me versus Zach Bivens. That game I was really proud of, just because like I think I was the only one that was able to like take 2 games off of him, like 2-0. And like it was extremely hard. I got really lucky, but I felt like the deck building aspect of it like really helped me navigate that matchup. So I felt like if that game was streamed, I'd be happier, but you know, I guess you don't really get to pick and choose those.
I
those
actually,
things.
I made a point as well that like, so for those, I think it was specifically for that game that you played, Ed, they did polls in the chat for people to pick the games, and I remember I said, I was like, I think they might have just had you on before, or maybe it was 2 games before, and
2
I'm
rounds,
like,
yeah.
and I'm like, these polls are nice for them to choose, but I'm like, because in my opinion, I was like, I wanted to see that game, right? I was like, I want to see Ed and Bivens battle it out, and of course there were some other ones as well. I'm like, if you're putting it to a poll, and if everybody wants to see Ed versus Bivens, is it a good idea to put a poll? Because at the same time, like you said, they want to showcase as many players from Worlds as possible, right? So should it just not be a poll, and should they just it's like it was a weird counterbalance thing to me, right? Because in my opinion, I was like, are these polls like, is this real data? Are they like fixing this for this match? But you know what I mean. It's like of course they wanted to like showcase as many people as possible. So, but yeah, a weird broadcast thing potentially.
The funniest part about the first time they did the poll is it wasn't actually a poll, but like people were just spamming numbers in chat, and then like they announced that there was going to be a poll, and before it, they even showed what matchups was going to be what number, the entire chat started spamming 1, and then when it actually started, we were like, oh, I think matchup 2 is the most likely, and actually the matchup that they ended up showing was 1, and I didn't see a lot of 1s after they actually showed the matchup, so it was like, I feel like they just took all the 1s of like even before the poll was up, which was very funny. But yeah, with the on stream, I'm in the same boat as you. I haven't had a single featured match in the entirety of season 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who picks these type of things, but like clearly there are some favorites, right? Like there's some people. Let's just follow them through the whole day. You know, I'm not gonna name any names, but you know.
Well, it's also like
they know somebody surely.
I understand it from I mean, I used to do, like I said, I used to do like some TOing, a lot smaller, granted, but I always understand the whole thing of where if it's a big open format that they want to try and show like, oh, it's the Ruby Steel deck versus the Amber Sapphire, like, you know, the most rogue decks, which honestly, like a lot of the time that is kind of interesting, and they'll only really be able to show that for 2 rounds, and then they have to show everybody that's like 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, and you know, we get into kind of showcasing the better decks and stuff, but it's just to kind of showcase diversity and stuff. Like I do think, honestly, the amount of diversity in decks that people brought really did surprise me. I remember sitting down and just looking at the stream briefly and seeing Ely playing the like Amber Sapphire Puppies deck. I was like, I did not expect to see this at Worlds, and of course it was a valid strategy. A lot of other players did it as well, and I'm actually thankful that players did decide to.
I think only 2 people did it. Like him and his teammate did this Amber Sapphire thing.
Well, honestly, that's more than I thought, Ed. I thought, yeah, I didn't think it was gonna be that many.
Just like a quick tangent. Yeah, that deck was actually really scary. I was like, after day one, I thought it was like, wow, this deck like is not great. Like I beat it, right? And then I started playtesting it that night because it's like that's my first matchup, and I literally lost like every single round. I was like, oh my god, I'm like so
I'm
fried.
cooked.
But I'm cooked, yeah. But like he didn't open like the turbo nuts where it's just like what I think what he did wrong on the first day was he just like quested out, and then day 2 I think he probably also figured out like against me he should just leave everything upright until he can like shift the Thunderball or like set up some kind of just a big board that I cannot deal with and just like try to go for the alpha. And once he started doing that, I was like, oh man, I am so cooked. But I was just really lucky to be able to get like the board wipes and stuff at the right
He
time.
started
So
to do that in some
shout out to
games.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like where he like. I was like, there's no way he wins this, and then suddenly he's building up a board where one turn he could like quest for 15. I'm like, oh my god, he might actually do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That deck was kind of crazy to me because at first, like, I didn't believe in it when I saw the lineup. I was like, I don't think that's better than just playing good decks. Then I saw it like for one game, and it was like it performed like crazy. They had the like on the play shift thunderbolt on 3 with like a high questing character on 2. I was like, okay, this actually looks pretty good. But then also with one of them making top cut, you could easily think, oh, so it must have performed. But then when I looked at it closer, like the lineup didn't perform for Teo team, and then Ely went 3-0 in seals and was the one that bubbled in. So they actually must have won 1-3.
He went 1-3, and then he lost.
And then
the
also
first
lost to
round,
you.
yeah.
So like the lineup went like 1-4 for him, and also couldn't have gone great for Teo team. So like maybe at the end that like I think I'm sure the deck worked fine, but like the lineup as a whole didn't really perform on that weekend.
So one thing I want to kind of clarify to some of our viewers. It's one thing I was kind of echoing to. I went to one of the LGSs here in Berlin to watch day one, and there was one guy in the LGS who was actually playing that exact deck when it was on stream. He was like, "Yes, my deck's at Worlds." He was like so hyped. I didn't want to like dampen his mood, but I think it's actually very important to state this to any people who are like plan to go to set champs and stuff. A lot of these aggro decks that you saw at Worlds, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure these guys will agree, are a lot worse in a format where you can't bench certain decks. If you go to a set champs or if you go to a much bigger open event, there's no guarantee that you're not going to see steel, that you're not going to see these anti-aggro decks. And that's something you really have to remember. Just because you saw an aggro deck perform like super well, I mean, even DKP's like green-yellow deck, it was built so super aggro. And yes, you could probably stomp a locals and maybe take a set champs. But overall, these decks are built the way they were built for a specific reason. Exactly how Ed built his decks with a game plan in mind, right? And I do want to remind people. I'm not trying to say don't have fun playing Lorcana. If you want to play your puppy deck, as Moyen said, it's a fun deck, but maybe just like the expectations of realize it's a different format, right? Is what I'm trying to say. Set champs and big open tournaments compared to this triple deck constructed format is very, very different. Would you guys agree, or do you think I'm talking too crazy?
No, I agree. I think even at Worlds, they were like, I think in the Worlds format they were like pretty decent, but they were not even crazy good in Worlds. Like for example, from the top 4 players, there was 2 players that actually played no aggro deck in their lineup at all. One of them being Ed, and then was two of them that played a hyper aggro deck in their lineup. And I think there was value to be gained in having like a deck that is very good going first, but like it wasn't even a necessity. There was downsides of making your queue order a bit more predictable, but like, and all of that was within the constraints of okay, you don't never have to play against steel except maybe in the finals, and you can handpick it when you go first. But I think outside of that, it loses a ton of value.
Oh, I was gonna say, so I mean, I had dinner with DKP after, right? And he was talking about how the inception of his green yellow deck came to be, and then he was just like, I just look for all the characters with ward that quested for 2, right? And then eventually he nicknamed the deck the $10 deck. You know, it only costs $10 to build the whole thing. So I think I think DKP's deck specifically, I think it's actually a very real threat. I think the ward aspect of it is actually extremely scary because it's like basically his whole thought process was like, how can I dump as many 2-questers as possible? And then even against steel, right? If like you can't interact with my ward characters, you're also still gonna lose, like regardless. So I think that deck is actually a very real deck, and I would say that these decks were kind of probably incepted through practicing Super Sealed, just the power of questing for 2. I think a lot of people were reminded like how strong that was after playing Sealed, and I think that had a lot of carry over to the constructed aspect of it. So I would say DKP's deck, I think it's actually a very real deck. You can actually bring it to set champs and probably beat a lot of people with it. And I would say the Amber Sapphire deck, is probably the same thing because there's not a lot to interact with because the puppy has with Patch, he has a ward, right? So you can just let him sit there. And I think the Turbo Nuts is not even like Shift Thunderbolt on 3. It's actually Alice on 3 into Shift Thunderbolt, and then quest with the Alice, give it like the ward, and then you quest with it, and now you have like the warded Thunderbolt, right? So I think that like combo is actually very scary and very like non-interactable, right? A warded 3/7 bodyguard, like what can you do on that, like with that on turn 4, especially like when you're on the draw, right? Outside of stuff like, you know, crab things, that's really all you get, right? Yeah, stuff like that, right? But if you don't have that, then yeah, you're dead.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so play those decks. Play some Amber Sapphire.
You should listen. You should listen to this guy. Don't listen to
Okay.
me. Yeah, yeah. You should listen to this guy. All right. Yeah, I'm sure, guys, we could continue to talk about Lorcana for another 2 hours. But thank you guys so much for sticking with us. We're actually nearly at the 2 hour mark. Ed, honestly, it's been a pleasure to have you back on the podcast. You're welcome back anytime. I hope that we get to see you at some future DLCs. And just congratulations once again. Like, I know you've probably heard it from everybody this past weekend, but like, you really put in the work. You should be extremely proud. And yeah, job's not done, eh? Job's not done.
Job's not done. See you next year. But yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, we're gonna be back on the grind.
Hell yeah. Awesome. If you guys enjoyed this episode of the podcast, the number one thing you can do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There's a video version of this available over on youtube.com/@PodcanaPodcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Twitters are @moin_HS, at Ed Lorcana, and @Kawatek_CG. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.